Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Tela Mathias, one of the managing partners at PhoenixTeam, and I'm here with my good friend Brian Woodring.
Thanks for having me, Tela.
Thanks for being here. And we are doing a 10-part accessible AI series. And the focus of this series is on how AI and generative AI is going to fundamentally change how software development works. And we've covered so far how Brian and I have both screwed things up, which qualifies us to be able to talk about software development. We've covered good ideas and bad ideas, and how most ideas suck, and getting through those ideas as fast as possible is really key. We talked about shared understanding, and that the process of making software isn't so much the problem as it's really about getting and keeping shared understanding. And last time we talked about requirements. Today, we're going to talk about product design. And, Brian, from your experience as a career software engineer and technology leader, what are some of the challenges you see in product design?
I think like a lot of other engineers, my journey started with me thinking design was just something that you could do yourself or bring in somebody who had good taste at the end and come like put a layer of paint, like a coat of paint on your software. And it really wasn't until further in my career when I started understanding. I remember reading The Design of Everyday Things and learning that design isn't just how things look, it's how they work, and really being user centric and thinking with empathy about how someone is going to use the product you're building, how it's going to make them feel, how effective it's going to make them. And then I kind of got religion on design. But the difficult thing, of course, is that in a software machine where a product's got to come out regularly or be iterated regularly, I've always found it to be difficult to do design the way it needs to be done.
It does end up taking a long time in many of the traditional approaches. I think when you follow along with our tech product mindset and you look at the concept of embedded design, product design being part of the product triad, being the tech lead, the product designer, the product manager, or the product owner rather. And then you look at the agency model, which is that more traditional waterfall style, a lot of customer interviews, take the time that you need. They all have their merits. And I've not seen it work especially well. I think we run into delays. We run into missing design components. We run into not having the right illustrator talent. We run into product designers that don't understand the industry and the domain. So they get in there to meet with our end users and our customers, and it's very difficult to even start a conversation. And I think those things are hard. And I think where we've ended up is, as you mentioned, design at the end. I think that the problem of product design could also be aptly called, yes, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still going to look like a pig. And so I think what we wanted to talk about today is how we can use AI and Gen AI potentially to look at some of those things.
I think everyone knows like the ideal way this should work is that you've got designers on the team who know the business domain as well as anybody else. That's the challenge with the agency model is you're bringing people who probably aren't business domain experts in your particular area. So a lot of that 6 weeks, 8 weeks is just bringing them up to speed. So they're on the team, they're embedded, they're part of the life cycle, they're part of every sprint. The difficulty is it's hard. That work, creative work like that takes time, and it's really difficult to get it into the rhythm of. So you end up with design sprints and other things you can do, but usually what teams do, especially in enterprise environments, is they just cut it short. They just cut corners on design, which is why most enterprise software is so unpleasant to use.
Yeah, and I think that's why we end up with, the app doesn't look like what we designed. We just didn't have time to get what we designed into the app. And we've been doing a lot of experimentation in the area of what can you do in product design using the tech today. Now, I acknowledge that the tech is moving really fast, so a lot of the weird problems that we identified will probably get worked out over time. But what we set our eyes on for the initial proof of concept for our software development platform the first release of which we did in a custom GPT, one of the use cases we wanted to try was storyboards. And anybody that's been out there has seen a lot of weird things. And I thought we could just take a quick little tour through what you can do today, how hard it is, how humorous it is, but also how cool it can be. And I'll start with where we started, which is what we call the peanut butter and jelly sandwich experiment. You can do this at home. We wrote an article about this. The basics are ask ChatGPT, please describe the process that you would use to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it does that beautifully. I mean, it's just perfect. Every step, it's just, you can easily follow it. It's well written. And then you say, all right, great, generate a storyboard, a 9-pane storyboard for that. And this is what you get. Now, I've run this experiment many times. This is actually one that my partner, Tom Westerlund, did, which is absolutely the best. And the longer you look at it, the weirder it gets. I feel like it starts out amazing. This is every hungry person ever staring out the window of their kitchen wondering, what am I going to eat today?
You can almost see they're like, should I DoorDash? No, I'll just make a PB&J. You can see the debate. It's a lot of emotion in those first couple of frames.
It is. It starts well, although, you got to wonder what's going on with the faucet. It starts to get strange. Clearly, he's under stress. You can see the cigarette in the first pane 3. You can see the attempt at putting peanut butter on with a spoon, which is an odd choice. And then we get to the first of step 6, skipping over step 4. And this is my favorite part. We've got the bowl of peanuts and the bowl of fruit as if we were making tableside peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, an artisanal PB&J there, straight from vine to sandwich. I love it. That's probably should have just ordered DoorDash at that point, but hey.
Probably. And it's just, what I just love about this is how weird it really gets. You can look at the fingers. That's not how I hold a spoon over there in the second pane 6. I can't tell what's going on with the enormous knife and spoon that we're cutting the sandwich with. And so it's such a good hint. You can see.
Well, did you mention the part where at the end he's encapsulating the PB&J to presumably take as a supplement later? Because that's the part I noticed is usually not part of making a PB&J the way I make it.
I guess that's not what you do at your house, is it, Brian?
No, I don't put them in the little capsules usually. That's just too much work for me.
And so what I love about this is how remarkably wrong it is, but how it has the appearance of being so close. And we've done a couple other experiments. So we're obviously up against a challenge here. One of the things that we were trying to do was figure out, all right, so can we get better imagery? Can we stabilize these images in storyboarding ultimately to arrive at a persona perspective so that we could then, fix images around a persona and use that. And you can see some of the more exciting results here. You run the gamut. And the thing about it too, is you get different things every time. So if you're trying to incrementally generate these storyboards, you get a lot of wacky results. We have seen everything from comic book to very abstract to, everybody's seen the hallucinating arms and fingers. But ultimately, we've started to arrive with a few techniques into the ability to generate a stable set of personas. And one of the ideas that we have is, can we extend that skill set of product design to a broader range of people? What if we had a software development framework where I could pick my persona, I could insert my acceptance criteria, and I could really start to envision what that experience would be like. And what we found is that if you ask just right, if you know how to put the right inputs, which includes the camera angle, the art style that you're looking for, a couple other key things, you can start to really generate repeatable, consistent, reliable stories. And I tell you what, the stories that can come out of OpenAI, and I'm sure there are others that do it as well, although we have experimented with that, they're just amazing. They are really powerful. This is one in the Department of Justice space for the Victims Compensation Fund. What's really interesting about this one is it's a 3 character journey. Also in the mortgage space. And if you read the text that's under these images, this was generated by OpenAI based on acceptance criteria that we generated out of our custom GPT, and now in our application that we're calling Phoenix Burst. And this can be done, like, did it take a long time to trial and error? Yeah, but this was done in minutes.
Yeah. See, this is incredible. And this is the phenomenon you keep noticing with these LLMs and generative AI models, is the line is so thin between ridiculousness and just something that takes your breath away, right? Looking at this would be hours of a human being's work, right? Hours. If they're very good and they already have the context and they already know what they're going to put in it, this is still
That's
hours
right.
of work here now. And being able to do that in minutes, you think about the time if you need to keep iterating it and putting it in front of users, the ability to rapidly iterate that you could get from something like this is incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I agree with you. And I think what we saw with storyboarding was both fun and a learning experience for us. The other thing I wanted to spend a little time about is, okay, great. So storyboards, awesome. Storytelling, that does seem closer to something it could do. What about application design? What about UI, UX design? And another experiment that we ran, and I'll share it here, in our journey to create a software development, an AI augmented software development platform. I've done a lot of wireframing in a product called Balsamic, which I know it's old school. It's my favorite. It's what I know how to use. We're stretching the limits of product design here, and at least in terms of my talents. So for all you product designers out there, I will accept all your judgment and all your criticism. So what this is here is it's a low fidelity wireframe for a landing page inside a Burst application, a Phoenix Burst application, to aid in developing software. And I said,
So
hey,
you gave it the image to start.
I
It
gave
didn't
it the
create this.
image.
You started by giving it the image that you'd already manually made. Got it.
That's right. And so I said, hey, I've got a low fidelity mock-up, evaluate the image and create something in high fidelity. And so it doesn't love this idea. It's not crazy about the idea. I can't directly create high fidelity mock-ups, so that's interesting, but I can do something.
I
And
gotta say, I honestly appreciate the honesty and directness
yeah,
there of it being realistic with you about what's achievable and what's not.
yeah,
That, on the other hand, is wild.
it's
What
just
is that?
it is. I'm not so sure what that is. And it gets a little weird. It kind of feels a little MC Eschery. You know, on the one hand, it's like there's hints of what I did, and then it just gets a little bit alarming, which is kind of a theme.
Yeah, it's
Um,
unsettling, actually. It's a
it's a
little
little
unsettling to look
unsettling,
at.
and look at the language. The language, it's so fascinating what happens with the language. It just can't handle English. I doubt it can handle any language. So I said, hey, let's try again. Maybe I just got a fluke, and I got this guy here, which is, I don't know what fatiotate is, but it's scary. And then I said, all right, well, for the image I gave you, tell me the intent. And I don't know about you, Brian, but this is not bad.
Well, so this goes back to what I said a minute ago about in the same breath, you see something utterly ridiculous and something kind of spectacular, that it can take that image that you uploaded and make a pretty darn good explanation of what it's seeing. That's actually kind of remarkable.
It is remarkable to me. And so I thought maybe I was onto something. Okay, guys, we got this. Now, you know what? Take the description you just told me about and let's get a lo-fi going in here. Sadly, our results were not good. And then I asked it, and I thought it, I love honesty. Why do you struggle to generate images from words? And it was, it was okay. It makes sense to me, right? Abstract concepts, ambiguity, detail and context, creative artistic judgment. Absolutely. Totally agree with all these things. And so I kept trying, and basically what I concluded is we're not close right now to application experience design using these technologies. You can get to storyboards. That is definitely within the realm. You can tell the story of an application. But I'm not if I'm a product designer, I'm definitely not worried about my job right now, is what I would say.
Fair enough. No, I'm worried about the end users who have to use software designed by GPT, but I'm not worried about the designers themselves. It is interesting though, like, so overall, having done this experiment, do you feel like this is something, if you're a product designer or a product manager, you should be playing with and learning right now?
100%. What I see out there, there's beautiful imagery. I will say I've become a little bit immune to its awesomeness because it is so easy to tell. And this could be me being naive, right? Because if I couldn't tell, then how would I be able to say, oh, I can always tell? You know, you can tell. You see all these images out there, and they're beautiful and they're amazing, and they don't do it for me, right? They don't look real. However, I'm telling you, what we saw with storyboarding, what would take days or weeks, we got done in minutes. The ability to have a story returned to you in the natural language of the customer, amazing. The ability, once you know how to do it, to stabilize personas, to put those into storyboards, it's remarkable. So, you know, and I'm sure this tech will come. Who knows? Maybe even by summer. You know, these things that we discovered won't be an issue anymore. But I think it is interesting. You've spoken about this in some of our prior series. We see a lot of investment in the AI, Gen AI space and developer tools. We don't see a lot in that earlier upfront, you know, parts of the process, which is where we're focused. What are your thoughts there before we wrap up?
You know what I think is that one thing we do know that these models are great at is telling stories and language. And so much of the discovery and imagination space of product delivery really comes down to finding the right story to tell. Like, what's the story you can tell where tremendous value is delivered, where customers will pay for your product? So I find that incredibly exciting. And I think when we can get to the point where maybe it's tools built on top of these models, maybe it's not the models themselves, because when you can get to the point where you can mock up entire working software, I think that's when it's going to become amazing. Still, it's exciting that it exists even now. 2 years ago,
Amazing.
we would have been floored to have even seen this much.
It's amazing. And I think another area where we've seen some gains that we'll talk about in our next segment is in solution architecture, technical solution design. Another one of those really creative, elite level professions. And we can talk a little bit more next time on how AI and generative AI is going to be disrupting that space. And so, as always, I appreciate you being here. I'm Tela Mathias. This is my good friend, Brian Woodring. Thanks for being here again. And this was our part 5 of our accessible AI series on product design. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you.